The college football experience, AAC and Conference USA conference previews for 2022 on the Sports Gambling Podcast Networks, presented by WynnBet. Bet $100 at WynnBet and get $100 free bet. Head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WynnBet. That's WYNNBET to claim your free bet today.
This is Jim Mora, and you're listening to Sgpn. Let it ride.
Yes, yes, yes. Woo! Welcome to the college football experience, Conference USA and AAC season preview episode. My name is Colby Swinging Database Dan, aka Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
I smoke and I drink and I don't have stress and I'm healthy.
Oh man, we are just so close to the season beginning. I love talking AAC. I love talking CUSA, and I love college football. The format is this, people. Today you get this episode, right? We get tomorrow. You're getting the Big Ten and the SEC, and then next week you will be getting our locks episode where we give out our best locks. We hit at 71% on our win totals. And not only on our locks episode, we'll be giving away all of our best plays for win totals on the season. We will also be giving away week 0 ATS games. Games are finally here. I am joined.
Don't forget also next week you'll also have the first college football DFS pod.
That's true. We're full on. And also, we're in the middle of breaking down college. We're still going down through all 131 college football teams. So make sure you subscribe to the College Football Experience. Subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/the college experience. But also we're breaking down college basketball too. Holy shit. Is there any more stuff you can pile on the plate? Look, I like working, and this is part of the fun. I am joined by my co-host. Look, we call him the Sunbelt Funbelt God, but he's also the DFS God. He just alluded to it. Listen to our DFS college football show every week. Give it up for the rooftop IPA drinking, homebrew making, Tobacco Road living, the free lack giving, former Herndon Basketball League MVP. Give it up for NC Nick in the place to be.
There we go. What's going on, man? The chat is already live. Hank the Tank 11. What's up, man?
There we go. Hank the Tank. Love the name, and love college football. We are excited to talk all this stuff for you. Look, we're going to get into AAC. That conference race, I think, is a bundle of fun this year.
The last American Athletic Conference year as we know it.
Yes. Then we're going to get into some of the teams that will be in the American. We're going to talk Conference USA and that race. We're going to talk all those things, but first, we have a lot of news that's been going on in the college football world, and it's probably a lot more than than I bargained for. I can tell you that. But let's just hop into it. First off, today, Mike Zimmer, hired by Deion Sanders at Jackson State as an analyst. I mean, we think Jackson State's going to go undefeated within the SWAC in the FCS ranks, even though they still don't, they would play for the Celebration Bowl and not the FCS playoffs, even though I think they should do both. Come on, folks. What do you make of that hire?
What's the tie in there? Did Deion play for Zimmer in Dallas?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Right.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, the guy has been around football for forever, so he's a wealth of knowledge. Why not?
He's got
add
that
him on
sweet
to the staff.
He's got that sweet ass eye patch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that looks pretty badass as well.
That's what I'm saying.
Hey, it can't hurt for sure.
Mike Leach should hire him. He's in the Pirates. Come on. I thought that was noteworthy. How about this? San Diego State, the Snapper, brand new stadium, NC Nick. The Snapper announces that they will have Aztecs official craft beer going on this year, starting with the launch of the Aztec Ale, a collaboration beer with the SDSU and the brewery for State Ale. I love it. Can we get an NIL deal? Is that can they? I mean, do they have to be 21? I don't know how that works. But
I will say that NC State had their beer Tuffy, I think it's called, a couple years ago. So not the first college I've seen do this, but I like it. Why not tie a local brewery in with the local college? Make a beer.
Yeah, make a beer. Let's do it. Also, San Diego State did lose wide receiver TJ Sullivan, tore his ACL. He's out for the year. Only had a couple catches, I think, last year, but was projected to get a bigger role this year. He's out for the year. We have a lot of injury news, guys.
Seems like more than usual.
Yes, and let me just get into it. Clemson defensive end Xavier Thomas, who first team All ACC, and you could make the case first team. One of the best defensive ends in all of college football. He's out 6 to 7 weeks. Had foot surgery. I know it's one of the more talented, if not the most talented, defensive line in all of college football. But this takes a little bit of hit at their depth. This guy was really good. He's really good. I mean, the only thing is Clemson's schedule. I mean, I'll get to the other one too. Clemson wide receiver Tony Stiletto only had a few grabs as a freshman a year ago, but he was supposed to be a little bit more of the picture as well on offense this year. He's out for the year with a leg injury, I believe. And so 2 guys gone for Clemson now. Xavier Thomas, if he's back, like first 6 or 7 weeks, you got to remember, like they play like the first week they get Georgia Tech in that stupid Mercedes-Benz game.
I believe NC State again. We're talking NC State, but I believe that's in the first half of the year too.
I think so. I think Wake might be too. But Wake's got Hartman out,
right?
So
exactly. Their Wake's over under went from 8.5. Their team total went from 8.5 to 6.5. I mean, it makes sense.
Lock it up. Lock up the over. Clawson's offense is going to roll.
I think it's a bit of an overreaction personally. Like, yeah, obviously you dip down, maybe a full game, maybe a game and a half, but 2 full games. I think Wake can still get to 7 wins with the backup. I mean, granted, I've never seen his backup play. He hasn't gotten much PT at all, so it's a gamble. But usually Clawson and Wake, they got some guys waiting in the wings, so it'll be interesting.
Oh, I like. Don't be surprised next week when we have our locks pod.
Really,
if that one gets called out, I feel pretty good about that. Other news, injury news, ACC related. North Carolina projected starting running back British Brooks. Well, he's out for the year.
So that's a damn shame too. Look, everybody knows I'm no Tar Heel guy, but that guy has waited his turn. He finally got it after the last 3 Tar Heel running backs are now in the NFL. This was his time to shine. So you hate to see it for the kid.
Definitely, and he was like he had like 8 yards of rush or something, 9 yards of rush last year. So DJ Jones and George Petway and Elijah Green will have to pick up the slack. Also, North Carolina wide receiver Antoine Greene. This is their second leading receiver last year. He's out 6 to 10 weeks. So
that hurts.
I'll tell you this, buddy. Give me App State week 1.
I was on App, regardless. I was on App 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago. Yeah, definitely on him now. Those are 2 big blows.
And we continue with the ACC here. Running back for Florida State, who was scout. He was I believe a freshman last year, scout team player of the year. CJ Campbell. They redshirted him. Florida State running back. Now he was going to be in the mix with 3 or 4 different running backs. He's out for the year, but this next one, starting center Caden Lyles out for the year. That and let me tell you something. Florida State's had problems on the offensive line over the past couple of years,
and so
that
close
is gigantic.
To the season starting. I mean, your center, he's the leader of your offensive line usually. So, yeah, maybe they got some other guys that can fill in there, but that's tough. So close to the start of the year.
Yeah, and they play week 0 too. So right. I mean, I know they play Duquesne, but hey, Duquesne beat an FBS last year. What's up, Ohio Bobcats? Staying in the state of Florida. South Florida running back Kelly Joyner, who's projected to be the starter, second leading rusher from a year ago. He's out 6 weeks, and now Jaron Mangum, the Colorado transfer, it seems like will start. But they have a lot of news coming out of Tampa, because also Jeff Scott named Baylor transfer Jerry Bohannon starting quarterback against BYU, and then instantly the freshman from a season ago that many had raved about, Timmy McClain, who started 9 games last year, he transfers out, which is crazy. I mean, this is what's crazy about college football now is you have this transfer strategy. Like by naming him, you almost think like for this year, I got it. Jeff Scott's in a critical year. He could get fired if he doesn't win. Bohannon's a senior, but McClain was a freshman that showed some promise.
He did.
But now, because you had to go Bohannon because you got to win this year, you wonder, because I think Bohannon's going to be gone next year. So
you might jeopardize the long term for the sake of the short term.
Yeah. And everyone's afraid to name starting quarterbacks. It's just fucking crazy college football. I know that
and we just saw the LSU guy Miles Brennan retire, quit football because he wasn't named starter. Look, we don't know the individual, and what they're going through or their circumstances. All I know is that it's become far too common that if you don't win the job, you quit or you transfer. It's like, dude, it's a long year. I mean, look at Sam Hartman. It's a perfect example. We were just talking about him. He's a guy that lost the starting gig, but what did he do? He waited his time. He improved. And then he got the starting job back, and now he's a Heisman candidate before the injury, unfortunately. So
I'm gonna date myself, but as a Colorado Buffalo fan, in the year 2002, which they went to the Fiesta Bowl, they got upset by David Carr and Fresno State week 1, right? They got upset, and in a game where their starting quarterback, who was a highly touted freshman, they were calling him the next Steve Young, which is ridiculous, but Craig Oaks got knocked out of the game.
Yeah.
And they didn't know who to start. They were and then they end up finding, they end up going with Bobby Pesavento, who ends up being a better quarterback than Oaks in the long run. And they go with Pesavento, they go 10-2, go to the Fiesta Bowl, beat the number 1 team in the nation, win the Big 12 championship. You have no idea that could have been you, Miles Brennan.
The backup is one hit away from coming into the game and starting the rest of the year.
Yeah. And I know he cashed in on like 5 NIL deals, and which is hilarious because you don't give the money back. It's not based on performance. So he gets the money, but dude, what are you doing? I mean, look, I get it. Brian Kelly lobbied for him to come back, and I get it. Apparently he was 3rd on the depth chart behind Nussmeier and Jaden Daniels, but still at least transfer. Like right now, he could find a home. Quarterbacks, people want quarterbacks. All right, like that's why McClain might end up somewhere even before the season starts. Another one, Jared Dogecoin, Jared Deggy, West Virginia transfer. So he's had quite the career because he started at Bowling Green. He was a starting quarterback, and I think he might be the active leader for college quarterbacks passing yardage wise. He went to West Virginia. He's been at West Virginia the past 2 years. Last year, he threw for over 3,000 yards, 19 touchdowns in Morgantown. He transfers to Western Kentucky this offseason, and he's projected to start there, and then loses the starting job to a West Florida transfer in Austin Reed.
Wow, I didn't hear about that. Interesting.
Yeah, and now he hits the portal again. So if your team is suffering from not having, like, let's say, here's a perfect example as I continue to rattle this off. Like New Mexico State, they had a quarterback competition going on between a JUCO and then Dino Maldonado. Dino Maldonado's out for the year. So now, not only do you have another guy that you can start, but hey, why don't we go get some depth and go land one of these guys? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but depth. I mean, these guys want to start. They want to play. If not, they wouldn't be transferring. So it's going to be interesting. At this point, 2 weeks before the season, I think every team has settled on a quarterback. You can't really bring one in now to be the starter. So so late in the process, I don't understand why these guys are transferring. Personally, I would stick it out and see if, due to an injury or due to poor play, maybe you get another chance. But with that said, we don't know all their circumstances, and you know what? They are free to do this. So I guess more power to them, I suppose.
And I thought Joe Burrow was a late, like Ohio State announced that he wasn't starting and he transferred to LSU really late. And then he went on to win 10. I mean, he won the national championship.
It wasn't this late. It wasn't like,
it was August. It was August. I can tell you that. Yeah.
Really?
Cause he thought he might start. And so they announced that he was not going to start. He transferred and it was up between Cincinnati and LSU. But it wasn't the year they won the Natty. It was the next year that they won the Natty. He still played good though. With that year. Other injuries going on, the Texas Longhorns, brutal. First off, Texas wide receiver A.G. Hall for the Alabama transfer. He was arrested, so he's suspended indefinitely. But also, Texas
that might not mean anything.
Yeah, pretty sure.
We saw what happened to Ania Smith on A&M.
But also Isaiah Nair, they're one of their key transfers from Wyoming. This guy was a baller. Tore his ACL. He's out for the year. And then this one is critical because the positions where obviously the Texas defense wasn't great last year, but the offensive line, we had a lot of question marks. Well, their most experienced guard who played both sides of the line of scrimmage last year, number one senior for starts, and they don't have a lot of depth. They're going from he's out for the year, and now a freshman is going to be filling his shoes. That's, by the way, Junior Angula is out for the year.
Go with the under, guys.
Yeah, ride that under. Other injuries: Ohio State running back Evan Pryor out for the year. He only rushed for 100 yards last year. Washington State lost a guard, Roderick Talavea, that was competing for the starting job. And this is an interesting one here. Iowa's wide receiver Jackson Ritter is out for the year, and also Iowa wide receiver Deontay Vines is out for the first half of the season. I mentioned that because those two injuries at the wideout spot. You got to remember Tyrone Tracy transferred to Purdue, their other wide receiver.
Yeah.
Charlie Jones, their other wideout, transferred to Purdue. They're gonna look for those 3 tight end sets. I'll just say that
they might just run the ball every down.
and they'll still win 10 games. Yeah.
I mean, when Spencer Petras is your quarterback, it might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Also, Nebraska offensive lineman, how do I pronounce this guy's name? Narendon Noli is a starter from a year ago. He's out for the year. Notre Dame got hit pretty hard here too. Avery Davis, their starting wide receiver, tore his ACL. He's out for the season.
That hurts.
And also their second string tight end Mitchell Evans, who caught some balls last year, he's out indefinitely with a foot problem. And they have another receiver that's out for week 1 at least that caught a few balls last year, Joe Wilkins. So the wide receiver was coming in super thin.
Yeah, that was a question mark to begin with, and then losing Avery Davis, that sucks.
And a little bit of their depth with Wilkins and Evans. They did name Tyler Buckner their starting quarterback. I also got a key. Man, there's a lot of fucking news going on here. Northern Illinois wide receiver Trayvon Rudolph. He was responsible for over 1,400 yards a season ago. All MAC second team. He's out for the year. USC projected starting tight end Jude Wolfe will miss the first half of the season, and also, and this one's critical, I think, defensive end Corey Foreman will miss the first month of the season. They don't have a lot of depth on the defensive line, so that's why that's key. Few others: Purdue tight end Garrett Miller out for the season. He's the backup, but he does get us. He had 19 catches a season ago. I think an Arizona State lost a tight end for the year in Jacob Newell. I think that's all on that front from an injury standpoint, but also SMU named Tanner Mordecai starting quarterback over Preston Stone. That was apparently a close race. Old Dominion offensive coordinator Dave Pottenod resigns.
You never like to see that either.
Yeah.
Obviously him and the head coach didn't get along. There was a riff. Something happened. You just never, it's not a good look so close to the start of the season. And I was high on that Monarch offense and their potential. Now it's more of a question mark. And if you were thinking of betting the over, which was I think at 4.5, I think you have to be concerned now.
Yeah. Certainly I was on the under originally, sharp handicapper that I am. All right. Well, look, that's all the news. Shit. That's a lot of news. Hopefully by tomorrow, when we record the Big Ten and SEC one, I won't have as much news. All right. But let's hop into this now. But before we hop into it, I want to tell you that the College Football Experience, AAC and Conference USA season preview episodes Brought to you by WinBet. Bet $100 at WinBet and get $100 free bet. Head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WinBet. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET to claim your free bet today. We're also brought to you by Odds Trader. Yes, Odds Trader is a place to compare odds from all the major sports books. You can also compare the different sign-up codes and promo codes from sportsbook to sportsbook to assure that you get yourself the best deal possible. The app also provides player statistics, key game stats, injury reports, projected game day weather for bettors who make the most informed bets possible. It also has a bet tracker so bettors can keep records of all your games, your betting activity, all that good stuff. So go to oddstrader.com/bluewire. OddsTrader, the #1 site for all your game day bets. All right, here we go with the AAC, buddy. All right, look, where's let's get something going here. Let's first I'll play.
It's easy to see a tide turn.
This is the AAC. UCF won a national championship a couple years ago. Cincinnati was knocking on the door last year. You saw how many players got drafted. What, 9 players? SMU, the Pony Express NIL deal. Look, they're not leaving for the Big 12 yet, or the Pac-12 yet. They're going to be there, and they might be dominating this league with that NIL deal they got going. The Houston Cougars were not far last year. The East Carolina Pirates are on the rise. Gus Malzahn's got UCF going, and maybe Jeff Scott's got South Florida going. Navy's due to bounce back. They got the midshipmen. All right, Temple's got a new coach. There's new life. Tulane, Michael Pratt. I mean, there's a lot of optimism around that program. The Golden Hurricane. All right, they're always a thorn in the side of teams. All right, this is a fun conference. It's a deep conference. Let's hop into it. And
honestly,
Nick,
how many teams do you think could possibly win the American this year? I think it's a pretty short list.
I think there's about 5 teams that can play for the championship,
which is different than win it.
No,
I'd say there's probably 3 teams that could win it. I have 4, 5. I think 5 teams could make it.
I do.
Think so? I think this is one of your chalkier conferences. Personally, I think it's really a 3-team race. But let's get it. How do you want to do this?
Well, I'm going to read off the odds. The favorite to win the AAC is the Cincinnati Bearcats at +190. Houston is in second place at +250. UCF, the very Golden Knights, at +320. Then it goes to the SMU Mustangs +1,000. I was surprised to see this next one. Memphis at +1,200.
Yeah.
Then ECU +2,000. Hello, sprinkle some. Tulsa at +3,000. Tulane at +4,500. South Florida at +5,500. Navy at +8,000, and Temple at +20,000. So 200 to 1 there for the Owls. I was shocked by the Memphis thing.
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked that the Memphis's team totals at 7.5 as well. I'm not very high on them. They went 6-6 last year. Returning starter, 7 on offense, only 6 on defense. The defense was not good a season ago. They finished in the conference, 8th in pass defense, 9th in rush defense. Yeah, I think you like Seth Hennigan at quarterback. I think he proved himself. He's decent, but also, I mean, they dodged Cincinnati. That's one big thing. No Cincinnati on the schedule, but they still get the 2 other best teams, Houston and UCF. And then, like, if you want to, and then they play ECU and SMU also. Those are probably the other 2 teams you mentioned that could potentially get the 5 teams that could make.
I mean, ECU beat them last year in the Liberty Bowl. I don't think they're going to win in Greenville.
I don't think so either. And then that's part of a back-to-back 2 away games, and the second half of that is at Tulane, and I think Tulane will be much improved this year. So they have a really tough stretch mid-season where it's Houston, ECU, Tulane, UCF. I wouldn't be surprised if they lose all 4 of those.
So the 5 teams that I think could possibly win it, and maybe you could talk me into a sleeper, but I do think this year's more up for grabs than most years, and that's why I do think there's
just because Cincinnati isn't as dominant.
Yes, and I also think UCF still has its questions with Malzahn, and I do think Houston was a little bit of fool's gold last year. They had I locked up Houston on the under last year. I'm sorry, on the over last year, and I think you actually gave me shit about it. But
I was on the under. I was dead wrong about them last year.
But their schedule was very easy last year. They avoided everyone that was good, and they should have lost to East Carolina. East Carolina fumbled right before the game went to overtime to give them life. You look at the schedule from a season ago. I don't see, I know that defense played at a high level, but I could also make the case that they didn't have a lot of meat on that bone. Yes, a 7-point home win to SMU and an overtime win against ECU at home, but on the road they didn't play anyone good. If anything, they gave up 42 to South Florida. And yeah, I don't know. I just don't. I think they might be a tiny bit of. I still think they're going to be good, but I just think. And
also, I mean, their schedule last year might have been easy. Well, this year they catch a huge break and they don't play Cincinnati or UCF.
Yeah,
they're the only one of the top 3 that plays neither, which is big.
But look, you look at a season ago, and you look at their road schedule a season ago was at Tulsa, at Tulane, at South Florida, at Temple, and at UConn, which was at a conference, even at Rice at a conference like that. Those were easy road games. All of them.
Yeah.
Tulsa was probably the hardest one. Well, this year, I think it's a little bit different. I think when you pull up this year's schedule, you'll say, hey, these road games they have are a little tougher. I know at a conference they're in Lubbock and UTSA at the Alamo Dome, the house that Terry Cummings built.
They could start off 0-3.
Yeah.
Let's focus on the road games first. Go ahead.
Well, look, at UTSA, at Texas Tech, I would not be shocked if they went 0-2, but I 1-1 I think is best case scenario there.
I think chances are they drop 1 and they win 1. I agree. I mean, Clayton Tune has been there for like 8 years now, the quarterback. So
yeah,
they have that.
At Memphis, though, another road game, the Liberty Bowl. I mean, they only beat Memphis by a little bit last year. So, sure. I mean, then at Navy, and that's on October 22nd. That might be cold.
They also get a bye week before that game.
True, but still,
that's big. You love the bye week before the triple option team. It also breaks up those 2 road games. I think that helps a lot.
I agree, but still, air raid if it's cold or rainy or something, it's a brand new game there. Then they're at SMU, which I think was a close game a season ago. Now they got to go to SMU. That's losable, right? And then obviously Dowdy Ficklin. Do I need to even mention? I think it's a much harder road schedule, and I think that's why the league is so open this year, as opposed to other years. So I
wouldn't be surprised if they drop at least 2 games in the conference this year. And that's why I think we're both on the under. Their team total sitting at 9.
Yeah.
But I just missing or not having to play Cincinnati or UCF is absolutely huge. So they catch a huge break there. I mean, Houston went 8-0 in the conference last year. And they still have a lot of starters back.
But that's because that road schedule. They played I mean, what were the combined records of those teams on the road? I think Tulsa was the only team that was they were 6-6 in the regular season. So I mean, they played 0 winning teams on the road a season ago.
Speaking of injuries, I mean, this happened in the spring, April or May or so. Their freshman running back last year, Alton McCaskill, really started coming on. He got hurt. I think he's out for the year, and only 2 starters back on the offensive line. That's why I'm kind of off Houston. I was wrong on them last year too. I could be wrong again. But you know, before the 11-1 season, I mean, they were what 4-8 and 3-5 in the first 2 years there for Holgorsen. So I don't know if last year was kind of everything, you know, broke for them, everything the stars aligned. But I'm not on Houston to go to the AAC final. I'm on the under. I still think they have a good season though.
Yeah, no, and I think they'll be in the mix. That's why I actually am going to push back on you some. I think this conference race is actually pretty intriguing this year. Because I do think there's blood in the water with Cincinnati. They lost 9 players to the NFL draft. All right, you cannot tell me that you're just going to be able. I do think the culture is good there. I think Fickle they develop talent well, but at the same time, I took the over on Cincinnati because I trust the program. But I mean, they won last year. They would have lost to Tulsa had Davis Brin not. I mean, I just feel like. Some of those close games. Desmond Ritter was a 4-year starter, man. At Tulsa this year. Well, first off, out of conference, they're at Arkansas in the season opener.
And I think that's a loss.
Yeah, I think it's a game, but I think it's probably a loss. Yes. But at Tulsa, I think that's a tough game. I think they could lose that game. Tulsa has played them well over the past couple of years. At SMU and at UCF back-to-back weeks.
That's rough.
Yeah. Wouldn't shock me if those became games. And then at Temple, I think that'll be easy for them. But wouldn't shock me if they had a loss or two there. And then I think that gives life to everybody. So.
The thing I love about Cincinnati is that they lost. Yes, they lost a ton of people, but they especially on defense. On offense, they returned 8 starters, and all 5 offensive linemen are coming back. Our guy Phil Steele says he thinks this is going to be the best offensive line Fickell has ever had at Cincinnati. That can go a long way with a new quarterback and a new running back, and we know Alec Pierce is the wide receivers on the Colts now, and also probably the best tight end duo in the nation with Weil and Taylor. So the defense is more of a question mark. I think the offense is going to be okay. I'm assuming Ben Bryant gets the job at quarterback, and they're not going to drop off that far. He has built up the program. It wasn't just 1 year. So I'd be shocked if they go under 9 wins. I think this is worst case scenario, a 9-3 squad. And they're going to be right there for that AAC championship.
I'm just saying, last year that Indiana game was closer than the score was. Indiana actually played pretty close. I think they had a pick 6 late to make that look like a 14-point.
They went
lead.
through a stretch last year where it was kind of mid to late in the season where there's like 2 or 3 games in a row where I was like, I don't know about Cincy.
Yeah.
But then they were able to turn it back on.
The Navy game, they only beat Navy by 7, and then the Tulsa game they won by 8, and even that was crazy because they added they almost lost that game. The rest they dominated within the conference, but I do think there's a little blood in the water, and I'm kind of bullish personally. I see the chat lighting up.
Joe Hackney's there. What's happening, man?
Says if Cincinnati was in the AAC, I believe the conference would truly be up in the air. I do think it's up in the air, and I actually don't have Cincinnati as my favorite. My favorite to win the conference. And I'm let me make sure I have the odds here. Is the team they have in 3rd place at plus 320. I think UCF's going to win the conference.
I love it at plus 320, man. I'm with you.
Yeah. And I love John Rice Plumlee in this offense. If you had a chance to watch this kid, I think it's a match made in heaven, him with Gus Malzahn, and the fact that they're hosting Cincinnati, the fact that they're hosting SMU, even hosting Navy because Navy beat them last year. That now their road test, within the conference are at ECU, which I actually think they will lose that game because it's the week before Cincinnati. I think it's just a bad matchup. Like Greenville's going to be rocking for that one, and they're going to be focused on Cincinnati. I think it's a great spot for ECU to catch them. But then they have at Memphis and at Tulane and at South Florida. South Florida is kind of an enigma to me.
It's a rivalry game. They have a ton of starters back.
Well, that's what I'm saying. South Florida has been great in the transfer portal. And Bohannon last year they didn't have McLean was a freshman. He struggled, but he also showed flashes. But I think his interception to touchdown ratio was terrible. Bohannon's going to give them that depth that they haven't had in a while of not depth, but that experienced starting quarterback that they haven't had in a while. Sorry, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about with depth, but they travel to Tulane. I think Tulane. I know Joe was mentioning this in the chat. Tulane was kind of like Nebraska last year. They're 2-10, but they were in every game. I think Tulane's going to be a lot better this year, and I think that's going to be a tougher road game,
especially being the second of a back-to-back because they play at Memphis the week before.
Yeah.
But I tell you, I have the very golden Knights of UCF at 6-0 coming to your Dowdy Ficklin on 10.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and I love that matchup. Right, because I think they're going to be thinking about the Cincinnati game. It's going to be a great spot to catch them. But I'll be honest, I look at ECU's schedule, and I actually think we have a shot to get to the AAC championship. Now, I the only flat out loss I have is at Nippert, but even that we get a bye the game before. I like the fact we play South Florida, especially early in the year.
Yeah,
and then at Tulane, like I said, that's going to be a tricky one. We whooped Tulane last year, but Fritz and and Houston go back. They've had some crazy games, and then at Temple. So I think it gives us a decent shot to actually be in the mix. Like, can you tell me, like if we're saying Houston's going to have 2 losses, potentially Cincinnati. I have UCF beating Cincinnati in Orlando, right?
Yep, I agree with that.
So that's 1 loss at least for Cincinnati. And then I even think the Tulsa and the SMU game could be tricky. I'll put it like this: the championship game. How many losses do you think both teams will have?
I'd be surprised if any team goes undefeated within the league this year. Now, the thing ECU does not have going for them is that they play UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston, all 3 of them. And I think that's like the top tier. Granted, 2 of those games are at home at least, but I think they have a tougher in-conference schedule than any of these guys. If you say the top tier is UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston, and then a second tier maybe is ECU and SMU. Well, ECU has the hardest in-conference schedule of those 5 teams. Out of conference is brutal too. I mean, if you're talking 3 home games: NC State, Old Dominion, Campbell, and at BYU. What's your record for those 4 games?
3-1, because I got us beating NC State.
I think maybe 2-2. So I know we're talking about a couple of different things here, but if you're talking about a team total, that's why theirs is a little bit lower at 6.5. I still think, I know you're on the over. You feel pretty good about it.
I do.
I'm going to lean in that direction, but this is not an easy schedule. ECU always schedules tough. This year, no exception. And I think that's going to be their downfall as far as winning the AAC this year.
I just think like someone, especially if we end up beating UCF, we could end up having that tiebreaker, and it could be tricky down the stretch. Like if you pull up UCF schedule, like I said, if they trip and fall to ECU and then one other team, and then all of a sudden someone's going to have that time. I like the fact that we get Houston and UCF in Greenville because we could have the tiebreaker over them if it comes down to it. Now
it helps that they're at home.
Yeah.
But the other thing too, your back-to-back road games at South Florida, at Tulane, those 2 teams are the top 2 in the whole American in regards to returning starters. Those guys are very experienced. It wouldn't surprise me if ECU drops one of those games. And then you're starting to pile up a few L's, which is going to make it tough.
You just look. All right. This is all I got to say, you sandbagging son of a gun. All right.
Because when you're in East Carolina, you go for it every time. Or you don't coach at East Carolina. You don't come to East Carolina. You don't play at East Carolina with a weak heart. Write it.
So besides that, Tulsa's the true. Tulsa and Tulane are this conference. The Temple's the really only shitty team to me.
Yeah.
South Florida, based on last year, was shitty, but I actually think talent-wise, they should be a lot better this year, right? I had a hard time forecasting
19 returning starters
and a senior quarterback that's been in college for a long time who,
they've
has
been
had
recruiting
success.
well.
Yeah.
They've been bringing in people. I think a decent talent level is there. The question is, can Jeff Scott coach, which we're definitely not sure of. Year 1, COVID year, 1-8, tough year for any, brand new head coach. Last year, 2-10. So far in the American, he is 1-14. So big year for Jeff Scott. I'm going under just because he has to prove it. Their team total sitting at 4.5. He has to prove it to me first. He hasn't shown much yet, but I do agree that they might upset a team or two. They might ruin a team's chances. One of those, top guys, trying to get to the American championship. But I don't know. USF is kind of hard to tell right now.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. This is why I find it intriguing too. Is like, dude, Philip Montgomery never gets any respect. He is a very good coach, in my opinion. He gets the maximum out of his teams, even when they lose. Like they lost to Oklahoma State. It was like a 7-point game last year or a 4-point game, something like that in Stillwater. That they played Ohio State really chippy in Columbus. They played, if Davis Brin wasn't a pussy and jumps into the end zone, they probably beat Cincinnati at Cincinnati. They're a strange team. And I feel like I think they've beaten UCF 5 straight times. They don't play UCF this year, so that's good for UCF, but they're a true team to me of like, they could beat anybody. Like they're kind of that team of like it's really hard to. I had them going 6-6, so I was right on the number.
That's what Tulsa does every year. So
well,
I'm not worried about Tulsa as far as a team that's going to compete for the championship. I think they're going to be a solid team that's going to be scratching and clawing for a bowl.
2 years ago, they played for the AAC championship. No one
true.
saw that shit coming. No one saw. I actually really believe that Philip Montgomery is one of the most underrated coaches in America.
I think it's a hard place to win.
But still, I mean, he does it. He like forecasting. Like when I was going through their schedules, like man, they're capable of beating anyone on their schedule. Like they really are. They're capable of winning any of those AAC games. And I know every year you factor in like, hey, they're going to lose to this game. We're going to lose, and they're going to beat some teams you're not going to think. They also
don't have much of a home field environment. Those stands are usually halfway empty. I don't know what else people have to do in Tulsa. Like go out and support your team, man. Because with the rowdy home field, that might give them one more win.
Well,
or
it's
two
the
more
smallest college in all the FBS.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like Wake Forest.
Right.
Let's talk Tulane. I really like on paper the roster. They went out and addressed the offensive line woes. I know they got hit hard with their nose tackle going to Oklahoma, but I love the run game. They have like 3 good running backs in my opinion. The wide receivers they brought in I think will help too. Pratt, another year going. I think they could be another team that surprise. I'm on the over with Tulane. I ended up going under on Tulsa because I thought it's more likely they go 5-7 than 7-5.
I agree. I did the same thing with Tulsa. With Tulane, I mean, you want to talk about the hard schedule within the league. They don't get Temple or Navy, which I think are the worst 2. So they play the whole top 5. They have at Houston, at Cincinnati, home to UCF, and then home also to ECU and SMU. That's brutal. And then their other road trips at Tulsa, at South Florida. Their schedule is brutal this year, but they do have 18 starters coming back, led by the quarterback, Michael Pratt, of course, and 4 or 5 on the O-line. I wanted to take the over. I came into this thinking I was going to take the over on Tulane. Then I saw their schedule. Outside of the conference, they have at Kansas State, which is tough, and Southern Miss, is tough as well. So you think Tulane can get to 7-5?
I had them going. So Tulane and Tulsa, I did their previews back to back, and I was like, they're both their win totals at 6. I had both going 6-6. I thought Vegas was spot on, but when I thought about it, I said I think it's better. Tulane has a better chance of going 7-5, I think, than 5-7, and I thought Tulsa has a better chance of going 5-7 than 7-5. But I do think both those teams are capable of surprising us being better than what we think.
They have some variance, like maybe like a 2-game variance where they could, if everything goes right, they could be like 8-4. So I still don't think that's probably enough to compete for the championship, though.
I mean, if Pratt takes the next step, he could be the best quarterback in the conference. I know people will say Mordecai or I do think Rice Plumlee is going to be a problem, but
you got to throw in Holton Ahlers as well.
Clayton Tune. But let's talk Navy because I do think you're underselling the midshipman. When what's his name, Niumatalolo will get when he gets an experienced quarterback, which Lavatai is now he started a decent amount of games there. They ended their season with a win against Army, and if you look last year, like I said, 7-point game to Cincinnati. He normally has more success when the quarterbacks are experienced. Lavatai is experienced.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, but especially I think like some rushing stat, like if the quarterbacks can run over, and Lavatai was close to that last year, so you kind of project they beat UCF a season ago. Navy, could they be bowling? I went over just because I think they're probably going to be better than what we think.
I went over as well. I agree. I think it's Navy doesn't have like 2 or 3 down years in a row. They have to wait till they have a new crop of experienced players and then they produce, and it doesn't even really matter who the players are. So. Navy's always a tough team to choose, but I think with a number as low as 4.5, yeah, I definitely went over. They may not be I mentioned them and Temple as the 2 worst teams. Well, those are probably the 2 worst teams last year, or at least they have the 2 lowest team totals. I guess technically Navy and South Florida both are sitting at 4.5. But yeah, I went over on Navy. I'm with you.
Talk to me about Temple, because I did the preview. I wasn't high on them. It was funny. I actually got some Temple fans, like 4 or 5 of them.
There we go.
Reached out to me saying they thought my projection was really wrong, and they think that Drayton's the right guy for the gig. He's familiar with that area, and he brought in Quincy Patterson from North Dakota State at quarterback, and him and DeJuan Mathis. And Mathis was a high recruit at Georgia. I still just think. I don't know Stan Drayton very well, so I don't know how he is from an X's and O's standpoint. So I'm like, I don't know. It seemed like a long shot to me. I went under on their win total there, but
just 2.5. Come on, man. I went over.
Really? Because I think they're going to lose to Duke in the opener. Their other
toss-up game, but probably
their other winnable games to me are Lafayette and UMass. I actually think UMass is going to beat them. I think UMass is a better team right now.
Yeah, I mean those first 4 games, they have Rutgers at home too.
Dude, Rutgers beat them by like 50 last year. So I'm not saying they're going to beat Rutgers.
Well, we know they're going to win one of those games, and maybe it's just Lafayette. But I think there's a chance they could win one more. And I think that road trip to Temple is always tough for American teams because it's cold. The stands are empty. Nobody wants to go there. South Florida in early November definitely doesn't want to go there.
Scott, that could be the game that gets Scott fired.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not betting. I'm definitely not betting this, but I think Temple might surprise us and get to 3.
Joe Hackney says, as a Philly native, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised you heard from Temple fans thinking they will be good. Philadelphia delusion is all that it is. Temple is garbage. Yeah.
Dude, they haven't been garbage. I mean, they had some good years not too long ago. I realize Drayton is pretty much starting from complete scratch, but I don't know. Call me crazy. I think they might be able to get to 3 wins.
I'll say, and I said this on the Temple episode. To me, now that their NIL is going, cities that have a large population, I do think. I understand, but look, dude, if when Matt Rule had them winning like 10 games, he actually had fans showing up there. It is a potential sleeping giant, man. It's like UNLV. UNLV, they don't care right now, but all it takes is a couple winning seasons, and trust me, you could, because it'll be a write off for the businesses too, man. Joe says if Niumatalolo has another dud of a year, is it time to move on? No, because even last year he hit on the over, and Army. I think that they were he beat Army, which job security is probably still very high. I mean, dude, they've had some great years with him. He turned down the Arizona, or I don't know if he turned it down or just didn't take it, or they changed their opinion, I think. But still, I think they know he's a damn good football coach. I think he's safe for a couple more years.
And Navy and Army aren't like a normal college where they might move on quicker. I think they stick with him. I think his job is pretty damn secure.
Yeah. So what's the lock? Like looking at those win totals, I'm in love with UCF over 8.5. I actually think that is going to be on next week's episode for me.
You know, they're going to be on mine too. Today I drove an hour to the Virginia border where I can legally place bets.
Border battle.
I made a shit ton of college football futures. One of them was UCF over 8.5. I think it was actually the only. Oh, you know what? I like the Memphis under also. My 2 favorite plays: UCF over 8.5, Memphis under 7.5. I don't see how this team wins 2 more games than last year. I think it's crazy to have it there. What's the juice on that? I didn't think the juice was that bad either.
We're agreeing way too much then.
So the juice is under. It's minus 140 on the under. Okay, you gotta pay a little juice. Big deal. But those are my 2 favorite plays. And unfortunately, it looks like we have the same conference championship game too, right?
Yeah. Well, for my teams that will surprise. Let's talk about that first. My team, my most overrated team in the conference, I think, is the Houston Cougars. You can make a case that it's the Memphis Tigers. I think it's
Memphis is
one
my
of the
bet.
two. One of the two.
Yeah.
Patty C said Memphis as well. NC Nick says Memphis. Team that will surprise. I have UCF, but I don't know if that's truly going to be a surprise team. So if I didn't do that, I put ECU because I think ECU is going to beat UCF in Houston in Greenville.
I put the team. I think you might be right there. But my team that we just got done talking with them, Navy. Team that will surprise is Navy. I can see Navy getting to a bowl game, and with such a low team total at 4.5, they're my surprise team. All right, conference championship.
By the way, Patty C had UCF as a surprise team. Conference championship game. I went chalk. In a way.
I'm telling you, this is a chalky conference this year.
No, actually, chalk would be Cincinnati, Houston. I have UCF, Cincinnati, and I have UCF. See, here's the hard part though. UCF better win at the Moon Bounce, because if they were to lose that game, this game will be played in Cincinnati and it will be cold.
Yeah.
Because remember, they don't play at a neutral site; they play on campus. UCF must win that game in Orlando against Cincinnati, because if they don't, I change my opinion and I would take Cincinnati. I'm taking UCF to beat Cincinnati. I think they'll have to go into the Moon Bounce twice. Give me UCF to win the AAC. What are you doing?
I don't think they sweep Cincinnati. I agree they beat Cincinnati in the regular season, but let's have a difference. So we have the same game, UCF versus the Bearcats. Give me Cincinnati to win again for the second straight year.
And Patty C has UCF and Houston going at it. So he doesn't even have Cincinnati playing for the AAC championship.
Joe, yes, all three of us are definitely on the over with UCF. So take that for what it's worth.
Oh, I think Rice
Is
Plumlee.
it a group think over here, or are we just all geniuses? Or maybe somewhere in between.
Rice Plumlee in that offense is I'm telling you, I think it's going to be really hard for all the AAC.
And look, I mean, they were a good defensive team a year ago too. They were the third best defense in the American. Yeah, I mean, they lose some players. Big Cat Bryan is gone, as is the leading tackler Tatum Bethune. But their secondary was one of the best. They only allowed 12 passing touchdowns last year, and everybody comes back. So this defense is better than UCF defenses in the past.
And you got to remember that Dylan Gabriel got injured in the second game of the season, and they had to start a freshman. Now they didn't have Rice Plumlee there; he was in Oxford last year. So, yeah, I'm high on UCF here. All right, well now we're gonna switch over and talk a little CUSA. All right, do I need to play this? Yeah, we love the Conference USA. We got the Roadrunners. All right. Watch out, beware what you wish for. It comes crashing down. All right, when the Roadrunners meet. We also have the UAB Blazers. Now, life after Bill Clark. I was so much higher on that team before that shit happened with Bill Clark.
That's a bummer.
You got the Hilltoppers, who played for the CUSA championship a year ago. You got the Florida Atlantic Owls, who they're one of the more talented teams from a recruiting standpoint. You got the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders. You got North Texas, the Mean Green, and Seth Luttrell, who ruined UTSA's perfect season a year ago. You got the UTEP Miners. You got Louisiana Tech, and they've been a bowl team for the most of the past decade with Skip Holt. They're switching to Sonny Cumbie in the Air Raid. You got the Rice Owls, make or break year for Mike Bloomgren. You got FIU, the Panthers, the Airport. You got Mike McIntyre. Can he revive that program? NC Nick, what do you make of the CUSA? I mean, let me rattle off the odds, I guess. The odds: UTSA plus 210, which I love, I might add. UAB plus 230, Western Kentucky plus 450. Florida Atlantic plus 800, Middle Tennessee, Rick Stockstill's squad plus 1300, North Texas plus 1500, UTEP plus 2000, Charlotte plus 2500, La Tech plus 3000, Rice plus 8000, and the Airport plus 12,000. So, 120 to 1 for the Airport.
I will not be placing that bet. So this is kind of similar to the American, where I think there's a top tier, and that top tier is 3 teams: UTSA, UAB, Western Kentucky. I don't even have
Western Kentucky in there, dude.
That's Joe Hackney's team to win it all, man. I'm actually a little down on the Hilltoppers also. I mean, Bailey Zappi's gone, Kitley's gone, Stearns They're gone. Tinsley's gone. I mean,
Dogecoin just transferred out, so their quarterback depth might be a question.
Yeah, they got only 4 returning stars on offense, 7 on defense, and the defense last year wasn't anything great. So I think that they'll still be like a bold team. They'll still be solid. They went 8-4 last year, and their team total sitting at 8.5.
Oh, I love
hold
the
on.
under.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
This team's going to win more than last year.
No.
I don't think so. Now, the schedule's different and everything too, but still, I love the under on it. Again, you're going to have to pay some juice. It's minus 140, but I think it's worth it. So I don't know, Joe. I don't know if they have that great winning culture just yet. I think it takes a little bit longer than one season.
we will see. And look, I want to dive into all these, but I got to get us paid, folks. I want to tell you that the College Football Experience CUSA and AAC season preview episode it's brought to you by Run Your Pool. Yes. Look, Run Your Pool is the home of competition, bringing sports fans in their social circles together to compete, to connect, and make every game matter more. I mean, Run Your Pool offers every game you can think of, from Pick'em to Survivor to fantasy pools. It's got customizable features that you won't get anywhere else. It's absolutely fantastic. And we've teamed up with Run Your Pool to host our own Sgpn NFL Survivor contest. This is free to enter, people, and believe it or not, we're gonna have some amazing prizes that will be announced very soon. Hop in now to reserve your spot. We're giving away $500 cash and a $250 gift card to the Sgpn merch store. So sign up today over at play.runyourpool.com/SGPN. Once again, that is play.runyourpool.com/SGPN. We're also brought to you by Sleeper. Sleeper is the fastest growing fantasy football platform, or fantasy platform in general, I should say. With millions of players, you probably already have a fantasy league on there. I know I do. They just passed 4 million users. Wow, that's crazy. And they have this awesome brand new over/under game where you can choose 2 or more players in any sport that you like and pick the over or under on their stat projection. And if you pick correctly, you can win anywhere from 2 times to over 20 times the amount of money that you put in. And with NFL season right around the corner, Sleeper's the first sports contest game built into the fantasy experience. So right now, on your mobile phone, join our listener group on Sleeper at sleeper.com/SGP. Once again, that is sleeper.com/SGP. $100 match on your first deposit. What are you doing, folks? Get in sleeper.com/SGP. All right. We are back talking CUSA football.
The thing that kills me in this conference too is that there's 5 teams with team totals between 4.5 and 5.5. It's tough. It's tough, man. So this is one conference when I went with a bunch of overs because I think you're getting fairly good lines on some decent teams. I know the Conference USA is not one of the better conferences in college football. Them and the MAC are probably in the running for worst, but there's a bunch of teams that I think could go 5-7, 6-6, 7-5. So let's just say overall, I took a lot more overs than unders in this conference. I would say most conferences, I'm almost dead equal the amount of overs and unders. For some reason, I favored a ton of unders, and you know what? It looks like you favored I'm sorry, I favored a bunch of overs. Looks like you favored a bunch of unders. So finally, we have some disagreement here,
dude. You get to the middle of this conference, and I got no idea. Like,
it's tough, man. Middle Tennessee and UTEP and Charlotte and North Texas.
I mean, Middle Tennessee is one that I feel like I could really be wrong on.
Who should we talk about first? You want to talk about the Blue Raiders?
Let's talk about Stockstill because Cunningham's back. He's an underrated coach in my opinion. So I'm probably misjudging that one. If there's one that I just sit there and say, man, I'm on the under, like who would really make me look like a fool? I could totally see Middle Tennessee being like 8-4 and being in contention to get to the CUSA championship or something. And I'm like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like,
well, if you look at last year, they went 6-6 and then beat Toledo in the bowl game. And, first off, they had 4 or 5 different guys play quarterback.
Yeah.
They started with Bailey Hockman, who was the NC State transfer. He did not pan out. I think they finally settled on Chase Cunningham, who was playing good football, went through for about 380 on Charlotte. Then he got hurt. And once he got hurt, those other backups, Di Laleo and Vatiato, I'm probably butchering their names, but they were not very good, man. And they still won 6 games last year.
I mean, they beat Marshall. Marshall. This was not and Southern Miss. I mean, this team's probably the one that I'm off on. If I had to look at one that I say, Colby, who would I be off on? I think it's Middle Tennessee. I love. So the odds. I read the odds actually. Okay, so yeah. I mean, let's talk. I love the UTSA over. How about you? I think UTSA is going to walk away with this. What are you doing, folks? Get in there right now and bet at what did I say? Plus 220 or plus 210? And it was the other day when I did it. I feel like it was plus 230. So the odds went down recently. I don't know why, but I kind of love that, man. I think when you consider they don't get Florida Atlantic or Charlotte, who I actually think might be decent in the CUSA this year, I really like their schedule, man. I really think, and like just look at their road. First off, Frank Harris is back. Yes, they lose their OC to Illinois, but this team killed it in the transfer portal. Absolutely killed it in the transfer portal. So I pull up their schedule and I'm like, okay, besides the first 3 games, which is Houston, Army, and Texas, I think every other game is winnable. And I wouldn't surprise me if they beat Houston or Army.
Well, let's talk about out of conference first, okay? Because last year their out of conference schedule was the Fighting Illini, Lamar, Memphis, UNLV. They went 4-0, barely. Beat Illinois by a touchdown, a 3-point win against Memphis, and a 7-point win against UNLV. I think this year the schedule's harder with Houston, at Army, at Texas, and Texas Southern. They're not going 4-0 there.
Yeah, no, I actually had them.
It might be 2-2.
I had them 2-2, potentially 3-1. I think there's no way they're going to be 1-3. They're going to get either Houston or Army.
I agree. I think 2-2 is fair.
2-2, and then when you look at the road games in conference, though, I kind of like the one game I was thinking before for the under to hit was the UAB game, but
at
now
UAB,
but they get a bye week before it. I kind of love the schedule, man. They avoid Florida Atlantic, they avoid Charlotte. They get Western Kentucky in the Alamo Dome. They get North Texas in the Alamo Dome. The road schedule, Rice? Like I said, the only one that they could lose on the road to me is UAB. I think they'll take care of Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, I think I agree. So I went into this thinking I was going to be more down on UTSA, especially because I knew their out of conference schedule was tougher. But when you look at the in conference, I had to go over also, and I think it's plus 130 also. So you're getting plus juice on the over with the UTSA. I mean, Frank Harris Sr. is back at quarterback. You got 4 of 5 offensive linemen returning.
Traylon Smith. They went out and got Traylon Smith, who's a stud at Arkansas.
Right.
At the running back spot. They lose Sincere McCormick. Hey,
he'll fill right in. And I think they have an underrated group of receivers as well. I think this offense, which was second best in the conference last year, only behind Western Kentucky. Well, this year, you know what? I think they're probably going to be numero uno. And the defense might take a step back, only getting 5 returning starters back, but they did hit that portal hard. So I think UTSA is still the clear-cut favorite in Conference USA.
You have to take it. Take the plus 210 or whatever I said. Plus 2, what is it? Plus 210 right now. Like I said, it was plus 230 like 3 days ago. I think you have to take it. There's no way they're not playing for the championship. I really believe there's no way they're not in that game.
Yeah, I would love to be able to like pick a team here that's kind of in the middle of the pack that's going to contend, but I don't see how you do it. I think maybe you argue, I think most of us are down on Western Kentucky this year, a little bit rebuilding there. And then I think people have a reason to be down on UAB. I am not personally. I'm actually taking the over on UAB, but who else in this field, this like middling average teams is really going to contend? I don't see it happening. So I think UTSA has basically a cakewalk to the conference championship.
Yeah. I mean, look, UAB, Bill Clark is gone, but maybe he believes in his staff, and because I do think that team is really talented. I actually think there's a big gap between UTSA, UAB, and the rest of the conference.
Agreed. Look, you got Dylan Hopkins at quarterback. He won the job last year. I think he's totally fine there. And then with Dwayne,
they also brought in Jacob Zeno from Baylor. Yeah, so they have depth too. Tyler Johnson's he's at Towson now in the FCS, but yeah,
Dwayne McBride at running back.
He's a beast.
1,300 plus yards, 13 touchdowns last year. 3 starters on the offensive line back. I think they're going to be okay there. And the top defense in the league last year gets 8 back. And I think their schedule is, they do get UTSA at home. And let's pull up their schedule here because I think they can get started off pretty on a nice. They're going to be 6-0 and going at Western Kentucky.
Well, I don't know. They could lose to Liberty.
Liberty won last year, but I think they get revenge. I think they were opening up their new stadium, and Liberty came down and smacked them. I think they go on the road and beat Liberty this year. And like I said, I think it's a pretty easy cakewalk to 6-0. And
I felt way better when it was Bill Clark. I don't feel confident in them just coming into Liberty. Let Liberty fans show up. I think that is like, if anything, I'd put Liberty as like a favorite in that game.
And look, I mean, Rice could be that's kind of a tough road trip. Not really.
Nah, they'll handle Rice. They'll handle Rice.
Middle Tennessee and Charlotte at home. Yeah, I mean, could you drop one of those? Of course you could. But I think they're going to get off on a very nice start here. And it is a little bit tougher towards the end of the year. UTSA at LSU, second to last game. But I hate to go chalk again, but that's my championship game. UTSA UAB.
That's even more chalk than the AAC one, dude.
Yes, this is total chalk.
For teams that can surprise. When I say surprise, it doesn't mean they're going to be in the championship game. Although maybe if UAB, let's say the wheels fall off since Clark's gone, then somebody has to, right? If you're down on Western Kentucky, down on UAB, who can bubble up? I mean, who do you talk yourself into? Florida Atlantic. I said well, they're the most talented based on recruiting. I know Stockstill always overachieves in my opinion, but how about the Charlotte 49ers? Chris Reynolds back, 5th-year senior. If they could just fix that defense a little bit, I expect this offense to be rolling. Yeah, we did the Charlotte preview a month or two ago, and I do like the offense a lot. The defense not so much, and you wonder about like the team's toughness overall. I don't know if Charlotte can make that big of a jump, but the offense should click, man. What about La Tech? They're kind of a true enigma because this is a winning culture that was built there. Yes, they had a bad year last year. If you look at La Tech last year, pull up that schedule for La Tech last year. It is unbelievable. They blow a 20-point fourth quarter lead. I bet the over, so I'm very familiar with it. They blow a 20-point lead to Mississippi State week 1. They have that Hail Mary that SMU beats them with, where it like deflects halfway across the field. They lose by 7 in Carter Finley Stadium to NC State. They had a close call at Old Dominion loss. A close call at Rice. Now they are installing the air raid, but they did pass more. Surprisingly, they passed more than they ran last year. He's bringing in an air raid quarterback. Could they be ahead of schedule, and could they be the thorn in the side for a lot of these teams that maybe we're not seeing? I don't see it. I'm on the under here. I think you're on the over with La Tech. It's sitting at 4.5. I think it's just going to take time with the new coaching staff. I think they're going to be towards the bottom of this conference. Well, someone's got to win these games, damn it. So Joe says, why couldn't a team like North Texas or UTEP step up? They're 2 potentials also. I mean, could they? Sure. But they've just been so average or bad for such a long time. Let's talk about them. UTEP, I think, was a little bit of fool's gold last year. They lose Jacob Cowing, their star wideout, to Arizona. And if you look at their season last year, they got some easy opponents out the gate. New Mexico State was terrible. Bethune-Cookman, terrible. And they only beat Bethune-Cookman by 10, right? Then they get a terrible they get whooped by Boise, but then they get a terrible New Mexico team. I'm looking at their wins. New Mexico couldn't throw the forward pass last year. They got Old Dominion at the right spot because Old Dominion ended up getting hot towards the end of the year. That was Ricky Ronnie's first year. They got him early in the season. I think that's a great get. Then Southern Miss, Will Hall's first year. They couldn't throw a forward pass. They had Frank Gore throwing passes. The La Tech win was impressive, actually, in my opinion. But when I watch them, I didn't buy in. I think they were fool's gold. I thought Dimmel did a great job by getting them to a bowl because that's an accomplishment and build on that. I'm not buying in. I'm on the under with them this year. I think these other teams and the schedule is not as easy as last year. Last year, they kind of everything broke nice for them.
Well, I would say, like, we said, UTSA and UAB are such clear cut above the rest. And that was evident on the field last year when they played UTEP. They lost to UTSA 44-23, lost to UAB 42-25. I don't see them making enough of a jump in order to knock off one of those teams.
Yeah, I'm on the under with UTEP.
I went over with UTEP too. Like I said, I think they can do it again. I mean, Gavin Hardison, 22 career starts, fourth year in the program.
Schedule's much tougher. They don't have an FCS, and in my opinion, the floor has risen. I think New Mexico State is going to be much better than last year. New Mexico, much better than last year. And by the time they play some of these other schools, like they get Florida International on November 19th, I think McIntyre will have them playing much better ball by November.
How many winnable games is on their schedule? I would say the only games they're definitely not going to win it: Oklahoma, Boise, UTSA. They don't have to play UAB this year. Every other game is winnable. All these teams are about the same. Like, why can't they beat both New Mexico schools? Why can't they beat North Texas, Charlotte, La Tech, Middle Tennessee, Rice, FIU?
I think they can't beat them because they barely beat them last year. They beat New Mexico by 7, and that was in El Paso. Now they have to go to Albuquerque, and you giving Rocky Long another year. It ain't going to be the same. It ain't going to be the same. I'm telling you, they had a lot of breaks last year. Maybe. I mean, look, maybe they can get 5 wins. I don't know. I'm on the under. They didn't. Okay. The quarterback is solid. The rest of the team, I have questions. I think they got
2 good running backs with Awatt and Hankins, and they had the 4th best defense in the Conference USA last year. And they get 13 total starters. Not great. I don't know. I don't feel great about Utah. I don't feel great about most of this conference. It's a Conference USA. To Joe's point, it is like the MAC. It is tough to predict from year to year, but I don't see UTEP competing for a championship. What about North Texas, Colby?
They're actually a sneaky one to me.
I think they're better than UTEP.
I do. I'm taking them week 0 FY. So you know now I'm taking North Texas to win in El Paso. North Texas is an interesting team to me, but man, they got hit hard on the portal on the defensive side of the ball.
Yes, the defensive line is a huge question mark. Now, I will say, they might have the best offensive line in the whole league. So that running game is gonna do just fine. But defense is a big question mark, especially.
And to me, it's the road games. This is why I'm fading them. They're road games. First off, they're at UTEP. I think they're gonna win that one, but it's still. Do you know how fucking hot El Paso, Texas is, man? I've done stand up there. That fucking place is in the middle of a desert.
It's even hotter when you're bombing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Then they go to UNLV in September 17th. I think that's tough. I think UNLV is going to be better than what we think.
I agree.
Then they have back-to-back away. They go to the Liberty Bowl to take on Memphis. I think that they're going to lose that game. Then their other road games back-to-back away, 2 sets at UTSA. Who I know that is a guarantee for me. Lay the points with UTSA. UTSA lost their only game in Denton, and UTSA delayed homecoming until they to the spot. They changed it to have it. There's no way UTSA is losing. To lay in the 14 or whatever, UTSA is going to fuck them up in the Alamo Dome. Then they had to Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky actually has a good home field environment. They have fans that come out there. I think that's a tough win. And then at UAB. I think the road schedule is what hurts them. I think they have a harder road schedule. I do think they're a better team than some of these other teams, but I think that road schedule is brutal. How about we look at Florida Atlantic and trust? Let's make a case for the team that probably has the most talent other than UTSA. They have a road schedule of at the Ohio Bobcats week 2. Well, first off, they get Charlotte week 0. That is a huge game because both teams are right there, kind of like who's going to step up.
I will say they've owned Charlotte of late, including last year. I'm pulling it up now. I know they whipped Charlotte pretty good last year. I think they've won 3 or 4 in a row. Bear with me here while I pull it up.
I like their road schedule is it's a little tough, but it's doable. At Ohio,
They beat Charlotte at Charlotte 38-9 last year.
Week zero. Maybe Charlotte prefers to catch them week 0.
I'm still thinking of taking the points in that game. What is it, like 7.5 or something? Is that the spread?
I think I'm taking the points too. I think I'm taking the points too. Maybe we're crazy. At Ohio, Peden Stadium, Saturday, September 3rd. That's a road game. I think it's winnable. I think they're gonna win it. At Purdue, okay, they lose that. Tough back-to-back away because I do think North Texas is pretty good in Denton. But it's not a for sure loss. Like it wouldn't shock me if they won that one.
Sure.
At the Sun Bowl in El Paso, winnable, but I do think that shit will get cold right around that time. At FIU, that's a win. At Middle Tennessee, I think it's manageable. It wouldn't surprise me. Maybe you sprinkle a little bit.
So
but
here's the thing:
teams are always so penalized. They're just.
And here's the thing: I don't like how they finished last year. So last year they were 5-3 and looking like they were in good shape to make a bowl game. But two of those losses were out of conference, so they were 5-1 in the conference. That hey, maybe they'll contend. They lose their last 4 games, all by double digits. Lost to Marshall 28-13 at home. Lost to ODU 30-16 on the road. At Western Kentucky, tough game last year. Lost 52-17. Then they lost at home by 10 to Middle Tennessee to end the year. That was for a bowl berth. Yeah. Where's the fight? You know? So I don't know, man. I mean, FAU, they're pretty damn talented, but I certainly don't trust the coaching staff. I'm not picking them to contend with the big boys in this league.
We got a random Mountain West question here, guys. Do you think UNLV may get a Pac-10 invite? I don't. I think they have to have some more winning culture on the football field. I think most likely, pretty obviously, San Diego State and SMU. But maybe you can make the case for Boise State because they're kind of a blue blood when it comes to that would really strengthen their football conference and also their basketball program's good too. So
I don't know what's going to happen with that. I mean, obviously UNLV is attractive because of a big city and a growing city. Legalized gambling becoming more normal. I think, more mainstream. I think UNLV is attractive, but you're right. I mean, they need a decent team too. It can't just be the city.
Yeah. So I think San Diego State and SMU are the ones, and then maybe Boise. But San Diego State easily number 1, so they can keep recruiting Southern California. One
more thing on FAU. With all that said, I went over. The team total is at 5.5.
Me too.
Just talent alone, I went over. Tough call though, especially how they ended last year.
Okay, so what's the most overrated team in the conference? I think it's by far Western Kentucky.
That's the easy answer. I mean, are we missing something? Joe's big on them. It just seems like they lost so much. I mean, they got a freshman quarterback now coming in. It's going to take some time. I still think they're not going to completely fall off the face of the earth. They're still going to go to a bowl game, maybe 7-5, maybe even 8-4 would be a very nice year for Western Kentucky, given all they lost.
There's only 3 teams you can take for being overrated because everyone else's win totals at like 5. All right.
Right. Somebody could, if somebody made the argument for UAB minus Bill Clark, I could see why. I'm not making that argument personally, but I guess I could see why.
Yeah. I think Western Kentucky is my only answer there. It's the only one I can answer. I guess if I had a second, you can't, I guess I'd say UAB if you're making me, but I don't feel that way. Patty C says UTSA is the most overrated team in the conference. It's coming at the road runners.
Like a hater.
Meep. Team that will surprise. Patty C says UAB. I don't know how much of a surprise it is when the odds are fucking plus 230. Hey, Patty C, who's not with us. Yeah, UTSA is plus 210. UAB is plus 230. UAB is almost the favorite to win the fucking conference. We got to give him shit tomorrow.
What do you think about my team that will surprise? I threw out the Rice Owls.
They got what? McCaffrey's now a wideout, right?
Yeah.
He's moving to wideout. That's interesting.
7
Look,
starters back on offense, 7 on defense. They beat UAB and Southern Miss last year, and they had 2 losses in overtime to North Texas and Charlotte. This could be Bloomgren's best team at Rice. And when I say surprise, I'm not talking like contend. I'm talking
bowl
about
game.
Yeah. If they go 6-6 and clear their very low 3.5 team total, I think that's a surprise team. Potentially Rice maybe flying under the radar. Am I crazy? Am I drinking too much over here?
I think so. I think you are, but I'll say this: when they hired him, I thought it was a good hire. And his first couple of years, the way they played competitively in their losses, and some of their losses, where I was like, he's going to turn this corner. Now it's never came. Maybe it's this year, and maybe I'm wrong. So I kind of like it. I kind of like your angle, even though I'm on the under with the Owls. Are we crazy to think Mike McIntyre couldn't? We've seen him turn it around at Colorado. We've seen him turn it around at San Jose State. Now, normally it takes him a couple years to build that culture.
Exactly, and I mean FIU, were they the worst team in FBS?
They
last
quit
year?
Though, man. If you look early on,
right?
If you look early on. To me, if the buy-in's there, they're a different team. I don't think they're just completely untalented. Look at last season early on.
Well, while you pull it up, is a buy-in from the university there? Are they still using used shoulder pads from Auburn from 15 years ago? I mean, are they going to treat these players like Division I athletes or not?
Dude, how about this? Okay, after the bye week, they got their ass whooped by everybody, but Texas State, they lose in overtime. So they beat Long Island in the season opener. Obviously, Long Island Sharks, FCS, whatever. They lose by 6 in overtime to Texas State. Then they went to Lubbock. Okay, they lost in Lubbock by 30 points, but that's supposed to happen. They almost beat Central Michigan. They lost 31-27. And if memory serves me correctly, I think I was watching that. And I think they were up in the fourth quarter. They got housed by Florida Atlantic. Okay. But they were kind of in that Charlotte game. There was a 12-point loss. I think this team might be more talented, but I don't know. I mean,
no more Max Bortenschlager.
Yeah, dude. But here's
I just wanted
one
to say
for
the
you.
name.
Here's one for you. Look at this schedule. Bryant Bulldogs, FCS. That's a win, right?
Yeah.
At Texas State, they took them to overtime last year.
I win that game.
I trust McIntyre as a X's and O's coach way more than Butch Davis, right? And hey, stranger things can happen. Watch out. And then their schedule has New Mexico State. It has UConn. It has the
rest of the shitty conversation.
Yes, they could win some of these games. This is the hardest division to talk about.
Really
the MAC's probably harder, but
I think I have a better feel for the MAC.
Yeah, I agree. There's something more appealing about watching a MAC game than like Florida International and UTEP.
Oh, that's one of the worst games of the whole year.
All right. Well, I'm taking the Charlotte 49ers to surprise. I know I did this last year. All right.
I was over on Charlotte. It was one of my locks. They barely came through for me, right?
Yeah, you had to sweat that thing out.
They hit 5.
Their schedule's tough, man. Their first 5 games are tough. They're probably going to be 1-4 in their first 5. Yeah. But there's some sunshine after that. They could beat UTEP. All right, that's 2 wins. They get a bye before UAB. Okay, they're going to lose that. But then home to FIU, at Rice, home to Western Kentucky. They could win those games, man. There's a path to a bowl game and a surprise team ticket from Dundee.
I think it's possible, man. I'm on the over 2. It's sitting at 4.5. So I'm thinking they're going to at least, equal last year's total. They have one of the most experienced quarterbacks in the conference, and that offense is going to be good. So that's going to at least give them a chance in pretty much every game other than the more physical teams like UTSA, UAB.
Yep. Man, I can see. Yeah, you make good points. We're agreeing there. All right, folks, I want to tell you that we're brought to you by Trade Coffee. Yes, Trade Coffee connects customers to the freshest and best tasting coffee they've ever made at home by partnering with the country's best craft roasters. These are independent businesses from big cities and small towns, much like the CUSA. Trade customers are truly impactful for these independent roasters, often being the largest source of new growth for them. It's expert tasted coffee. Yeah, Trade's got a coffee team with like over 450 different kinds live and ready to ship out to you. and they taste test thousands of coffee every day. What a job, right? There's no perfect coffee, but there is a perfect coffee for you. And Trade has a human-powered algorithm. They're gonna find you. It's like online dating. All right, if you're trusting online dating, you might as well trust this algorithm to figure out your cup of coffee in the morning. All right. Right now, Trade is offering new subscribers a total of $30 off your first order plus free shipping when you go to drinktrade.com/SGP. That's more than 40 cups of coffee for free, people. That's like $1,000 at Starbucks.
I get a bag every 2 weeks. I'm really enjoying that subscription. You know what? I got it for Mother's Day. We've already re-upped one more time.
Nice. There you go. So get started by taking their quiz at drinktrade.com/SGP and let Trade find you a coffee that you'll love. Once again, that is drinktrade.com/SGP. We're also brought to you by Dave. Yes, Dave. No, not your Uncle Dave. We're talking Dave. Dave is the banking app that can help you get up to $500 instantly with extra cash. People, that's more money to fill your tank, buy a wedding gift, catch up on bills, bet on Florida International, whatever it is. All right, it's all there for you. All right. And look, because we've all had moments in life where you've needed some money. You're stuck in a jam. All right, you're just maybe you go to the Alamo Dome to catch UTSA, and you get completely bombed with a couple friends of yours and spend way more money than you're anticipating.
Happens to the best of us.
And then all of a sudden, the first of the month is right around the corner, and you're struggling. And you just gotta, oh shit, I spent too much. I can't tell my girlfriend; she's gonna think I'm a fucking loser, right? I can't call my mom because she's gonna say I'm irresponsible. Well, guess who is responsible? You, right? When you download the fucking Dave app, all right, it gives you $500 instantly. Download the Dave app from the App Store right now. That's DAVE. Sign up for extra cash account and get up to $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking provided by Evolve. We're also brought to you by Sling. Yes, it's college football season, people, which means you need the unbeatable coverage of Sling TV. Starting at $35 a month, Sling has the biggest games on the biggest channels like ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN3, SEC Network, ACC Network, Fox, and the Big Ten Network, all for the best price. You can stream it on any device, record up to 50 hours with included DVR space. You could pause or change your service at any time. Check out sling.com for special offers. Sling, the live TV you love for a price you'll love. Try us today. All right, we are back talking CUSA. Let's get to it. Patty C says UAB surprising. What a fucking answer.
He mailed that one in, man.
He did. He did, man. That is not a surprise when they're practically the favorites. Who plays for the conference championship? All of us have the same conference championship, believe it or not, people. Chalk City, UTSA versus UAB.
I guess let's go ahead and say Patty C picks UAB to win it. Maybe that's the surprise, because I think me and you are both going to have UTSA, right?
Yeah. And since he's under on UTSA, he does have UAB winning the CUSA. I have the Roadrunners. I think they're about to be a blue blood, man. In the group of 5 ranks, they're moving to the AAC. So in the future, you're gonna have SMU, ECU, UTSA. Florida Atlantic, South Florida. It's just still be fun. Tulane, Tulsa. And hold
on, one more thing. If you're looking at favorite win totals in the column, I'm afraid we're going to have the same answer. It's going to be over UTSA, under Western Kentucky.
Yeah. Oh, by far my favorite play is over UTSA, under Western Kentucky. And
what would be a third? What would be a third if you had to go with a third?
My third is gonna be over. I'm gonna take a shot on over Charlotte 4.5.
I'm gonna take a shot on under La Tech 4.5.
Oh,
how dare you get rid of Skip Holtz?
How about this? How about to win the conference plus 210 for UTSA? I'm actually gonna bet that. That makes a lot of sense to me because I think they're definitely going to be in that game. If you had to take a non-UAB, non-UTSA with the odds, is it FAU plus 800? Do you go? You might as well go. If you're going to throw that money, you might as well go juicy. What if you go North Texas plus?
I was thinking North Texas, man.
Not bad. Seth Luttrell.
I would say, go North Texas, man. Great O-line, experienced quarterback, good running backs. That goes pretty far, If you want to get crazy, if you want to do a sprinkle, I think the mean green makes a lot of sense.
There we go. And 3802 in the chat, he says, don't forget about the Big Sky Conference. We don't. And I'm going to have an FCS preview before the season starts.
There we go.
Big Sky. They represented hard last year. UC Davis went to Tulsa, won. Eastern Washington went to UNLV, won. Montana went to Washington, won. Woo. Montana State, lost by 3 at Wyoming in a game that I think might have went to overtime, if memory serves correct. But also Northern Arizona went to Arizona, won. That conference, that's a great football conference, man. That is a very underrated. They could come up if they just jumped up to the FBS now. They'd be fine. I really believe like they would be better than the MAC or the CUSA if they came up tomorrow and played an FBS schedule. Joe Hackney, with the corporate chumps trying to kill college football, at least we still have the FCS. Hey,
move to the spring full time FCS.
Oh man,
actually with USFL there, I don't want that. Stay in the fall.
You know what the FCS needs to do? They need to play more weekday games.
Yes, we've talked about that. Yes, for sure.
The Big Sky and all these conferences in Missouri Valley that are fantastic football conference. You can still have, just a couple games.
FCS Friday just has a ring to it, man. FCS Friday, come on, load it up.
They got to do that. Thursdays, Fridays, Wednesdays.
College kids don't go to school on Fridays.
Dude,
if they're dumb enough to schedule class on a Friday, they're probably not going to make it there.
ESPN just lost the Big Ten and who knows what direction they're going to go in, but pick up, you can make some serious money. You can have people find out about your football programs. Hit the weekdays, man. Go do some Wednesdays. Just do one game a week on a Wednesday, the whole season. Definitely. I think it makes a ton of sense. I think you get great ratings. Someone out there, talk to me. Get me the Big Sky president on the phone right now. All right. All right, folks. Well, this has been fun. We can't wait for the season. It's right around the corner. Remember, tomorrow night we are back with the Big Ten and SEC preview, and next week our win totals locks episode and week 0 picks. The season is right around the corner, folks. Subscribe to the College Football Experience. Remember, we're also wherever you listen to podcasts at, and also remember we're on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/the College Experience, and our college basketball previews have been flowing already. Boston College came out today. Who doesn't love college hoops? The season is only like 80 days away, believe it or not. Check out those, and also the remaining teams left. I just did the UConn preview. The USC preview dropped today. Go listen to those. All right. For college football, as we go through all 131, subscribe, tell a friend. Also, remember, check out the Sports Gambling Podcast. They're doing the 32 NFL teams. Solo episode for every single team in the NFL. You get their fantasy football draft right around the corner. Check out the Fantasy Football Gambling Podcast. Check out the brand new NFL Gambling Podcast and brand new Formula One Gambling Podcast. But get the Discord, or get the app and hop in the Discord channel. All right. You hop in there. You can talk about any of these sports. All right. sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Discord. Folks, appreciate you joining us. This is the College Football Experience, AAC and CUSA preview. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here.
Thank you. Well, this is a great way to get started. And I haven't even won all my games yet. It's a great night to be a Tiger. I'm here with my family.
Team speed, for Christ's sake.
Every Olympics. Doesn't matter who wins because they're all losers.
I think tide turning, as I remember, I was raised in the desert, but tides kind of turn. It's easy to see a tide turn. Did I say those words?
A chameleon, a lemon-headed, coward, terrorist pussy. And I'm after you, buddy. You're going to pay for it tonight.
Sometimes it may be good, sometimes it may be shit.